Right, so we're on paper 2, question 2 of the November 2019 exams. And this is a question that has to do a bit more with statistics, just like question 1. So let's get into it. Let's see what we have. Let me just select the right thing here. Okay, a survey was conducted among 100 people about the amount that they paid on a monthly basis for their cell phone contracts. The person carrying out the survey calculated the estimated mean to be 309 Rand per month. Unfortunately, he lost some of the data thereafter. The partial results of the survey are shown in the frequency table below. Okay, so they give us our frequency table. And question 2.1, we are asked how many people pay 200 Rand or less on their monthly cell phone contracts. Okay, so that's all the people that paid between 0 and 100, which is 7. And all the people that paid between 100 and 200, which is another 12 people. So all these people paid less than 200, which is 19 people. 200 or less. Okay, 19 people. That's question 1. Nice easy one to get us started. Question 2. Question 2.2. 2.2. Use the information above to show that A equals 24 and B equals 16. Alright, so those are, just in case you can't see it, here's an A, and here's a B in those questions. So those are missing frequencies. Okay, so we need, since we have two unknowns, we'll need two equations to solve this. So the first equation I'll write is, we know the frequency is 100. Everything adds up to 100 because there were 100 people. So we're going to say that 7 plus 12 plus A plus 35 plus B plus 6 equals 100. Okay, let's keep the A and B on the left. So we've got A plus B equals 100, and then minus 7 minus 12, minus 12 minus 35 minus 6. So A plus B equals 40. And there is our first equation. Right, now we need another equation. The other equation we can find because we know what the estimated mean is. He's already calculated that. So the mean we calculate by using the midpoint of the classes or the intervals multiplied by the frequency and taking the sum of that divided by the total frequency. So let's write all of that down. So the midpoint of between 0 and 100 is 50. So we go 50, that's the midpoint between 0 and 100, times the frequency, which is 7, plus midpoint between 100 and 200 is 150, times the frequency of 12, plus midpoint between 200 and 300 is 250. So we can see this pattern continues, multiplied by A, plus 350 multiplied by 35, plus 450 multiplied by B, and finally 550 multiplied by 6. So all of that divided by our total frequency, which is 100, gives us an answer of 309. Alright, so let's simplify that a little bit. Let's work this out. I'm going to multiply both sides by 100 so that we get equals that. So on the top, we're just going to multiply this out. So that gives us 350 plus 1800 for this one, plus 250A plus that gives us 12,250, plus this gives us 450B, plus, and 550 times 6 is 3,300, equals, and then we times both sides by 100 to get 30900, 30,900. And now let's keep the A and B on the left again. So we get 250A plus 450B equals, and again we take everything else to the other side, 30,900 minus 350 minus 1,800 minus 12,250 minus 3,300. Sorry, that needs another 0. Alright, so that gives us 250. Oh, that's a really ugly 250. 250A plus 450B equals, and if we calculate this, we get 13,200. And then you could use it, you could leave it like this, but I'd like to simplify, so I'm just going to divide everything by 50 to get 5a plus 9b equals, what does that give us? 264. 264. And here's our second equation. Alright, so we see we've got one equation, another equation, and then we can solve them simultaneously. So let's do that in another color. So I'm going to write that down. So we've got our first equation was a plus b equals 40. The other equation was 5a plus 9b equals 264. Alright, so I'm going to take this, I'm going to use the elimination method. You're welcome to do substitution if you like. I'm going to multiply this equation 1 by 5. So if I multiply this by 5, I get 5a plus 5b equals, and 5 times 40 is 200. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the second one. I'm going to take, let's just do that. So I'm going to say this equation minus this equation and see what we get. So 5a minus 5a is nothing. 9b minus 5b is 4b. And 264 minus 200 is 64. Divide both sides by 4 and we get b equals 16. Good. Now we can just substitute that back into any one of our equations. I'm going to use this one. That looks like the easiest, equation 1. So I'm going to say a plus, and then instead of b we have 16 equals 40. So a equals 40 minus 16, which means that a equals 24. Perfect. Perfect. So we're done. Now the good thing about this question is they told us what our answer should be, so we can check and we can know if we're right. And we can know that if we go on to the next questions, at least we know what the answer should have been, in case we get that one wrong. Alright, let's move on to question 2.3. 2.3, I'm still going to do that on this page. So 2.3. 2.3, they ask us, write down the modal class of the data. Now modal class, that's just a class that has the highest frequency density, not necessarily the biggest frequency. But in our case, all the classes or the intervals are the same width. All of them are 100. Right? 0 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 300, etc. So that means you can't just look at the frequency. But if they were different, well, let's first see. So the answer we know should be between 300 and 400. This will be our answer, because that has the highest frequency. And let's just see why. Let's write the answer down and let's see what we would have done if it wasn't the same width for all the classes. So we know our answer must be this one, this interval, 300 to 400. That one, that is our answer, because that has the highest frequency. But in general, to find out which is our modal class, we need the frequency density. So I'm just going to do a quick calculation here. So from 0 to 100, I'm just not going to write the inequality signs. 100 to 200, just rewriting this table. 200 to 300, 300 to 400, 400 to 500, and finally 500 to 600. Okay, so those are our intervals. And this will be our frequency. And let's calculate our frequency density for each. Frequency density. Okay, so the frequency here was 7. For this one it was 12. For this one it was 24, 35, 16, and 6. Okay, so the frequency density, all we do is we take this value. I'm just going to we take the 7 divided by this width. Now the width is 100 minus 0 is 100. So 7 divided by 100 is 0.07. 12 divided by 100, 0.12. 24 divided by 100, 0.24, 0.35, 0.16, and 0.06. So you would look at this column to see which is your highest frequency density. And we can see this is the biggest value. So that will be our answer, between 300 and 400. Now, like I said, in this case, if all of them are the same width, then we can just look at the frequency, because that will sort the frequency density out by itself. If it's not the same width, please remember to first calculate the frequency density and not just write down the highest frequency. Okay, let's do question 2.4. 2.4. So I've gone to a new page for this because we'll be needing graph paper. So they say, On the grid provided in the answer book, draw an ogive. An ogive is a cumulative frequency graph to represent the data. Alright, let's just fill in our values here. So we know that A we found was 16 and 24. B was 16. A was 24 and B was 16. Alright, now we need to draw an ogive. So I'm just gonna go down here to draw that. Let's see, do I need extra space? No, that's actually fine. Let's draw it here. So I'm going to use the straight line things here to draw that, because freehand I'm not going to be able to draw it well on my writing pad here. Okay, so let's start from there. And so we know the maximum is 100. I'm going to use 2 of these intervals to represent 10. So we need to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Somewhere there. I didn't really count properly there. Oh man, I have to redo that. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a line. We can count later. That should be okay. That's ugly, but that's fine. And sideways we need to go from 0 to 600. That should be good enough. Okay, let's fill in our values. I'm gonna write in black for this. So over here we have our cumulative frequency curve on the side. Right, so this is our cumulative frequency. So it has to go from 0 to 100, which is the total frequency. So it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. Okay, let's just draw that up to the top. 100. Alright, and here we have our class interval, so we want the end point of each. So we have 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, and 600. Okay, now we need to draw the cumulative frequency curve, right? So let's just draw a cumulative frequency table. Well, actually, we already have the table on the question. I'm just going to write it down there. So our cumulative frequency here, we've got 7. Then 7 plus 12 is 19. 19 plus 24 is 43. 43. 43 plus 35, 78. 78 plus 16, 94. And 94 plus 6 is 100. And you can see, if you're right, if this last frequency, cumulative frequency value is the same as your total frequency. Alright, let's plot our values. So we will say at 100 we have 7. So at 100 here we go up to about 7 and draw a dot. Then we go at 200, we've got 19. So 200 we go up to 19, just below 20. At 300 we have 43. So we go up to 40, that's 45. 43 is just below that. 400 we've got 78. So we go up to 78, that's 80. So just below that will be 78. 500 we've got to 94. 94, that's 95, so just below that. And then for 600 we go up to 100. Good, and now we connect this with freehand. And I apologize for how ugly I'm going to draw this, because I'm drawing on a writing pad, not on the screen itself. So let's see if I can manage this. Roughly. Okay, that's a little bit better than I thought I'd manage. But yeah, let's just do it one more time to see if we can't do something slightly better. No, that's about it. Okay, so you would draw that much better than I would. Okay, then that is our cumulative frequency curve. Just remember to put your labels. So cumulative frequency on the vertical axis, and this would be our amounts in rands on the horizontal axis. Good, that was question 2.4. Now 2.5, they ask us, determine how many people paid more than $4.20 per month for their cell phone contracts. Okay, so that is by using this graph that we just drew. We can't use the tables to find out something about 420 because we only know the grouped data there. Nothing about exactly at 420. So what we'll do is I'm just going to change this into a dashed line, draw a straight line. Okay, so from 420, so this is 400, 500, 450, there's 420. We're going to draw a straight line up until where it meets. So I'm going to draw it a little bit past because I know it should have gone through that point. So somewhere here is probably the answer, where it would touch the graph if we drew it properly, and then go sideways, and there. So whichever value that is, we read that off. We read that value off, and that will be something like, if that's 85, let's say 84 or 83. Let's make it 83. That sounds good. So we know it touches at 83. So what does that mean? So between 0 and 400 is the same as between 0 and 84. So more than 400 would be this part, which is 100 minus 83, which will give us 17 people. 17 people paid more than 420 Rand per month for their cell phone contracts. Alright, so that was question 2, and join me again for question 3.